New York Jets training camp has officially kicked off under the Aaron Glenn era. And baby, today we were in the building for the first practice. What were some key takeaways? What were some positives? What were some negatives? We'll talk about that and much more, all coming up here on a very exciting Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, baby. Let's go.
J-E-T-S, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Long.
What is going on, New York Jet fans? Hello, everyone. Welcome back here right into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. I'm your host, Connor Long, right here with you on the show. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe on your way into the building. It's completely free and helps us grow significantly. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers, so hit that like button and hit subscribe. It is completely free of charge, and it really, really does help this channel and us grow this community super significantly. So appreciate your support. As always, smash the like, hit subscribe. Questions, comments, thoughts, you could throw all of those in the chat. We're going to get to those shortly. You can go into the show with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. The paid way to help us grow, and it helps us just as much. You can get into our membership raffle. Every membership gifted or $2 super chat gives you an opportunity to win a Lavernius Cole, Santana Moss, Wayne Corbett signed photo, a Don Maynard signed photo, an Altoon signed photo, a free item from our merch store, and a channel emoji, along with a signed Sauce Gardner picture that will come in a frame. So certainly get all your super chats and memberships in. They really do help us grow significantly here on the show. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, super chats, memberships, throw those in the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts in the chat. Call into the show with a pinned comment. Appreciate all of your support. As always, right here on the show. Today was a very good day. It started very early in the morning here in Long Island, but in fact, we were in the building with the media credential for today's New York Jets training camp practice. It was the first practice of the Aaron Glenn era. It was not open to the public. The first practice open to the public actually occurs in 2 days. That will be on Friday, July 25th. Despite it not being open to the public, obviously it was the first practice, so still getting back into the swing of things. Obviously, mini camp wrapping up a little over 2 months ago. So first time these guys have been back on the field in a long time. So it was certainly intriguing to see, how the first practice unfolded, what everything was like. There were certainly some key takeaways. There were some positives. There were some negatives. I'm going to start really on the offensive side of the ball. I think you got to start with the quarterback here, obviously, that being Justin Fields. I hate to say this. You guys know I love giving firm answers, yes or no. Justin Fields was very up and down during today's practices. There were some possessions in 11 on 11 where I was really impressed with his overall accuracy, his ability to get the ball out quickly. And then you look in, other 11 on 11 sessions, especially 7 on 7. He took a little too long in the pocket. He struggled to get the ball out with great accuracy, threw a couple hospital balls. So overall, an up and down day for Justin Fields. He did throw a touchdown to Garrett Wilson, which was a beautiful pass, about 30-plus yards downfield. It was an over-the-shoulder catch for GW. And then obviously that went to the house for the Jets' only touchdown of the day. So Fields did throw a touchdown. Overall, I thought he looked okay. He was just inconsistent from time to time. And again, I can't preach this enough. Don't put too much stock overall into how Fields or anyone truly looked today. It's the first training camp practice. These guys aren't in pads. They're not hitting, wildly hard. I would take everything, with a grain of salt either way. Like Justin Fields, me saying Justin Fields was a little iffy is not saying that, he's going to be, a huge struggle this offseason. The Jets are, going to be without a starting quarterback as Justin Fields is going to be absent all season long. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying he looked a little, shaky from time to time. He was up and down a little bit. And I think that's a product of multiple things. Obviously not being on the practice field for an extended amount of time. That still learning a new offense, still building chemistry with your new teammates. There are multiple factors that obviously play into the fact as to why Fields wasn't, throwing for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns in his shorts today. So that's my overall assessment on Fields. It's going to be interesting to monitor how his progress, continues over the next few days, over the next few training camp practices, because there still are obviously a ton of training camp practices left. This was just the Jets' first official training camp practice, not open to the public, media only, in attendance in Florham Park, New Jersey today. So that's my overall assessment on what I saw from Justin Fields today. Staying on the offensive side of the ball with many other names to get into on this list, I'm going to start with the running back room. I thought the running back room was a very, very big bright spot for New York today. We saw all three of those guys, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, Breece Hall, contribute in different ways during today's practice. I saw a lot of Breece Hall getting to the outside. I saw a lot of Breece Hall getting involved in the receiving game, on screen passes, on swing passes. That's what I want to see. We shouldn't be putting Breece Hall up the middle like this old coaching staff was last season. You need to use his speed, you need to use his elusiveness to cut to the outside, get him involved in the receiving game. That's what I saw today. I didn't see any, huge plays from Breece Hall, but I really, really liked the way, Tanner Engstrand was utilizing him on select plays today. So nothing jaw-dropping, nothing astonishing from Hall today. I really, though, did like the way that the Jets decided to utilize him. Someone who I did see, jaw-dropping material, astonishing play from today was Braylon Allen. If you followed me on Twitter today, we gained over 300 Twitter followers today because of, my coverage of this practice. So shout out to you guys. Appreciate it there. Go follow me on Twitter if you haven't already, at Connor_long15. That's where we were doing all of our live coverage for today. And those who are following the live coverage know I, was preaching Braylon Allen all day long. I was just, amplifying how great he played on the field today. He got involved in the passing game along with the run game. My biggest, and I'll pull it up here, the first session of 11-on-11 drills, I did put out a tweet kind of, with my biggest takeaways. The first one was Fields, obviously, because it was the possession where he connected with Garrett Wilson on that 30-plus yard touchdown pass. But you look, I mentioned Braylon Allen there. I say Braylon Allen's going to fit in beautifully with Justin Fields on read options. His great vision, ability to hit the hole hard with all of his power is such a special ability. What I saw to Braylon Allen today is a guy who could move the ball north-south on a read option play for Fields to be able to use his agility and get east to west. I think that's going to be super, super, super special on this team, and I expect to see a lot of Braylon Allen and Breece Hall read options this season. Obviously, I can't speak on, the way that, the plays that the Jets were running today, for example, as that is against media guidelines, but I'm just projecting into the season here. I think Braylon Allen and Justin Fields, those two in the backfield together, I think is going to be a very, very scary force for opposing teams. And what I've spoke about broadly before even going to practice today, what I've spoken about really over the past few weeks, the thing that I like most about this Jets running back room is each one of these backs brings something completely different to the running back room and contribute a different asset that another one doesn't have. Breece Hall, again, is the home run hitter. He can make the big play. He has his elusiveness to, cut to the outside, be the home run hitter, be the big play getter. Then Braylon Allen, on the other hand, is your guy who is your short back, is your power back who can, you just need someone to hit the hole hard, get a burst of speed. Braylon Allen is that guy who could truck through a layer of tacklers. That's Braylon Allen. And then I always say Isaiah Davis, the great thing I love about Isaiah Davis, he's kind of a mix of both, 220 pounds. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He optimized pretty much every snap he had last season, averaged over 4 yards per carry. Isaiah Davis, the guy I've been very, very vocal about here on this show. He was getting involved today. Again, not a huge play from Isaiah Davis that I want to point out overall, though he was getting used today, which I like to say. The running back who did impress me most today overall had to have been Braylon Allen. Just the way that, he was able to hit the hole hard, make big plays. And I think him and Justin Fields are going to be, two-headed monsters in the backfield this season. So really, really looking forward to seeing the way that those two are able to coexist and make plays this season. So Braylon Allen and Justin Fields, two very, very scary running threats in the backfield that I think opposing teams are truly going to need to look out for game in and game out this NFL season. Spoke about the positive of Braylon Allen. We spoke about the iffiness of Justin Fields today. I want to get into someone who did struggle in the receiving room today. Two guys who really did struggle, who frankly are under a ton of pressure these next few practices and all, this summer as a whole. Those two guys, Malachi Corley and Xavier Gipson. Malachi Corley was already at a disadvantage entering training camp as he dealt with, undisclosed injuries throughout minicamp, throughout OTAs, and he struggled to kind of find his way onto the field. He looked to be moving around fine today. He was moving around fine. He was getting involved in drills. He really got one opportunity to make a play here today, and it was Tyrod Taylor was in at quarterback. Justin Fields is not a known quarterback. I can't disclose the the route that Malachi Corley ran or what the play was here. But Tyrod Taylor throws the ball. It was slightly behind him, but still like a very catchable ball. Like if this was in a game, this would be counted as a bad drop. And he just dropped it. And is one Malachi Corley drop in training camp gonna make or break his status on the roster? Absolutely not. But it's frustrating to the fan base and someone like myself who's been pulling for Malachi Corley, who I didn't expect him to have a huge role on this team last season. This time last summer, I was preaching that, and I was ultimately correct about that. He didn't have much of a role on this Jets team this past season. I think Malachi Corley deserves to have another chance at making this roster, but I really do think he has to earn it. And today was not a great start for him overall. We did not see him, taking special team snaps. He's not a guy who gives you special teams, upside compared to, a Jamal Pritchett, for example, who I'm going to get into in a little bit. Someone who I was really, really pleased with the way that he overall performed today. Malachi Corley is a guy who doesn't really give you much on special teams, has struggled as a receiver. He's going to have to do everything he can and optimize this next month of training camp if he really wants to make the roster. And I know that sounds crazy given the fact that, the prior regime traded up to the first pick in the third round to select Corley. And now we're talking about him as a guy on the roster bubble who may not even be on the roster this season. So, it's certainly going to be intriguing to monitor Corley, see how he performs over the next few weeks, over the next few practices. And obviously, I expect him to play a pretty prominent role on this offense throughout the preseason because I think those in-game reps are going to be super, super important. Make or break whether he ultimately lands a spot on this team's 53-man roster. And again, I know how that sounds absolutely insane given the fact how high everyone was on Corley at this time last year. He's a high third-round pick, his first pick in the third round, and now we're talking about him as a guy who may not even crack the 53-man roster. So there's Malachi Corley. Not a great day for him, but someone who did have a great day, an undrafted free agent from following this year's draft, someone the Jets signed, that being Jamal Pritchett out of South Alabama. Those who watch the show, those who read my JetsXFactor.com articles, you guys know I am a huge Jamal Pritchett fan, and I think he has a legitimate chance to win a spot on this team's roster. Really, really liked what I saw out of him today. Made some beautiful diving catches, some hospital balls that Fields put out there. He dove, he made plays. His speed really, really showed off today. And, he's a very, very small guy. He's 5'7", 156 pounds. So Jamal Pritchett is a very, very, very small guy. So for him to, be able to, stick out and use his speed is certainly really important. I'm just looking at my roster that I have here for his exact height and weight. But yeah, Jamal Pritchett is a very, very, very small guy. He stands out there on the field given his, lack of height. But I really, really liked what I did see out of Pritchett today, and I can't find. Oh, here it is. Yeah, 5'8", 175. So I think he put on weight because I think he weighed in at like 160 at the Senior Bowl or something like that. But yeah, still 5'8", 175. A very, very small little player. This is a guy who gives you upside speed-wise. He's an okay route runner. He holds on to a lot of passes. Gives you upside as both a punt returner and kick returner. I think that's super important when it comes to maximizing these roster spots. Get guys who can do a ton of different things, and I think Jamal Pritchett offers that. I think Jamal Pritchett is, way more of an offensive threat than Xavier Gipson is. I wouldn't go as far as saying, he has more upside in the receiving game offensively as Malachi Corley, but I'd certainly roster a guy like Jamal Pritchett before I handed Xavier Gipson a roster spot for the third year in a row on this football team. So Jamal Pritchett is another name who stuck out for me today, and I'm going to be monitoring over the next month, and he's another roster bubble player here for the Jets. So shout out to Jamal Pritchett. Great practice today out of him. 4th-round pick from the Jets, wide receiver Arian Smith. The most polarizing draft pick that this team made this year, given the fact that they did ultimately select him in the 4th round, which a lot of people, including myself, did view as a reach. I will say one practice in, I really, really was pleased with what I saw at Arian Smith. I put out a tweet. It's evident as to why the Jets selected Arian Smith. It has to do with his speed. I saw him utilize his speed really, really nicely, whether it was getting downfield quickly, cutting across the middle of the field, I really, really like what I saw to Arian Smith. The quarterbacks were able to hit him in stride multiple times today. Super, super pleased with what I saw to Arian Smith, being able to use his speed, his ability. So it's evident as to why the Jets selected Arian Smith. He was able to, hold on to the ball. He hauled in multiple receptions, which is a promising sign. We all know the drop issues that he did have in college. So shout out to Arian Smith today. Really, really impressive practice. Him and Jamal Pritchett, I think were the two guys who really caught my eye. Two rookies, obviously. Arian Smith selected in the 4th round. Jamal Pritchett, an undrafted free agent out of the University of South Alabama. So both those guys, I think, had very, very, very good practices, in my opinion, for the wide receiver position, while ultimately Malachi Corley did struggle today. Yeah, Pritchett had the one play that I really liked out of Pritchett. He caught a diving ball in 11-on-11. He was getting open quickly, and then Smith was just the speed, the athleticism, the route running, everything of that nature. So those are the things that really caught my eye in both Smith and Pritchett. So a lot to look forward to there from an upside standpoint. With both those guys. Those are my offensive takes from New York Jets training camp. First practice only open to the media. I was there. That's my opinion on the biggest takeaways from the offensive side of the ball. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. Questions, comments, thoughts, throw those in the chat. We're certainly going to get to those. Call into the show with the pinned comment. Also, get all your super chats and memberships in. Every $2 super chat or gifted membership gives you an opportunity to win Lavernius Cole, Santana Moss, Wanker, Bet signed photo, Don Maynard signed photo, Altoon signed photo, a free item from our merch store, a channel emoji alongside a signed Sauce Gardner photo, which comes in a frame. So get your super chats and memberships in. They really do help us grow significantly right here on the show. Again, thank you so much for all of your support. As always, smash the like button, hit subscribe, questions, comments, thoughts in the chat, call into the show with the pinned comment. You guys are the best. Appreciate all of your support. As always, right here on this beautiful Wednesday evening. Now moving over to the defensive side of the ball, there weren't nearly as many takeaways, in my opinion, as compared to what I saw offensively. We're going to get into special teams in a little bit too, because there were some interesting things that I did catch on special teams today. But defensively, the two guys that you expect to play significant roles on this team and be leaders on this defense, Jamie and Sherwood and Quincy Williams, were flying across the field. They were, laying big hits. They were making big plays. It was good to get a glimpse of those guys in action in training camp. So, but those aren't roster bubble guys. That's what you expect out of, seasoned NFL veterans coming in training camp. You expect them to succeed and thrive right away during the first few training camp practices. So obviously, Quincy Williams and Jamie and Sherwood stick out, but that's per expected. Nothing by surprise there. One guy who did lay a nice hit by surprise, it was actually on Arian Smith. He laid a beautiful hit, was JBC. And you can't really hit that hard in training camp, but if that was a game, the ball might have came loose. Shout out to Jarek Bernard Converse for laying a pretty nice hit on Arian Smith. JBC, another guy competing for a roster spot in a packed secondary. Him, Quantez Stiggers, those guys are really going to need to make the most, out of training camp, out of the preseason, and they're going to need to earn roster spots. Nothing is given to them on this team, especially two guys who remain unproven. JBC has dealt with injury throughout his entire career, and then Quantez Stiggers didn't even really see Stiggers today, and then obviously didn't prove much during his rookie campaign last year. So those two guys are players I'd look out for in the secondary here. Will McDonald, nothing to say from I'm looking at my notes here, by the way, down below. So see me look down. That's what I'm doing. Will McDonald, nothing really big play wise, but you notice that he bulked. He probably added, I'd say, about 10, 15 pounds this offseason. You see it in his arms. I think I was, who was the reporter? It was Nick Faria, shout out to Nick Faria, joins us every Monday right here on the show. Standing next to Nick, and I was looking down, and I know Will McDonald was changed number 9, but I looked at him and I was like, Nick, is that Will McDonald? Looks like, yeah, he put on so much weight. Yeah, Will McDonald really, really bulked up this offseason. So adding more power off the edge, adding more agility, that's really, really, really going to be a special sight to see for Jet fans this season. So really looking forward to see the way that Will McDonald is able to, complement a 10-sack campaign that he obviously had last season. Is going to be interesting to see how he's able to follow that up this season. I think he can replicate that success. I think improving as a run defender, though, should be the number one priority as Will McDonald. That's going to be super, super, super important. He was one of the league's worst run defenders while still having a 10-sack season last year. So if he's able to improve his run defense, though, I think he'll become truly one of the best all-around edge rushers in the league. But that run defense, like I said, is really, really going to have to take a significant leap because it was among the league's worst last season. So shout out to Will McDonald, though. Really bulked up, really added some weight. Those are the key things I saw on defense. Quincy, and Sherwood really flying around. And then obviously Will McDonald's bulk. The play of the day, I'd say defensively, and surprisingly, probably my most impressive player from just like a play standpoint, was Brandon Stephens. This is a guy who a lot of fans are going to be looking at after they obviously, used a very high draft pick on Azareye'h Thomas in the third round. And you signed while signing Brandon Stephens to a 3-year, $36 million contract in free agency. Obviously, Stephens under a lot of pressure here. I can't disclose the play, but Stephens coming in at the line made a beautiful, beautiful tip off of Justin Fields. He deflected a pass right at the line. So shout out to Stephens. I thought it was Michael Clemens at first. I got excited, like, oh, Michael Clemens, making a play at training camp. And it was, nope, Stephens. Stephens was ultimately the one who got his hand on it and deflected it. So Brandon Stephens had a nice tip at the line. This is a guy who, again, these practices are going to be important for him, not as a roster bubble guy, but as a guy to establish his spot as, the starting corner alongside Sauce Gardner on the other side of the field. These reps are going to be super, super, super important for Stephens. So I thought he made a very nice play. I thought, frankly, in coverage, he actually wasn't all that bad either. I know, obviously Garrett Wilson made that huge play that you all saw on social media, him going up and mossing Stephens, but Stephens was right there. He was right on the ball, and he just missed the interception. He could have, and shout out to Garrett Wilson, obviously making a huge play there. Stephens, I think, still really needs to improve his on-ball skills, but he's there at every single play, and I think it's been evident as to why, Aaron Glenn and the Jets really want to take a flyer on Brandon Stephens and try to develop him further as an on-ball corner. So Stephens, I'll give the play of the day to. Defensively, special teams today was an absolute joke. We didn't see anything out of kickers. They didn't see any. Check Twitter for the other reporters. I don't think they tweeted anything either. I didn't see anything from Caden Davis, Harrison Mevis, and Thomas Hennessy today. Obviously, I saw all three of them kind of walk down back to where the weight room is at one Jets drive. I didn't see them kick any field goals. What I did see, though, was the embarrassment that was the two Jets punters today. Obviously, it's training camp, so these guys are still getting back, acclimated to the game of football. Austin McNamara really didn't, really was just with the Bengals last year at this time. He didn't kick in any preseason games. He didn't kick in any regular season games. So, he's kind of getting back into the groove, with punting wise, with the full special team squad in. And as it goes for Kai Kroger, he wrapped up the college season, from now a long time ago. So those guys still getting acclimated. I wouldn't make too much of it, but yeah, the punting was not great today. Overall, Xavier Gipson, from the return standpoint, I know a lot of you reacted to my tweet that got a bunch of views. Yeah, Xavier Gipson muffed a punt that was right in his chest today, so he didn't look great return-wise on special teams, but the punting is where I want to focus on here. Austin McNamara, I think, sailed like a 25, 30-yard punt off the side of his foot, almost into the stands today. One of his first punts on the day. It wasn't great. I said today that I don't think the punter or kicker potentially are on the team right now. I think the Jets can look to, add a guy at cut down day for that spot who can, come in and be the starting kicker. And then you potentially add another punter as well. I think the Jets are going to be scouting other teams throughout the preseason for those two positions. If I had to make a guess, I think the kicker is Mevis. I think the punter isn't on the team right now. That's my prediction. And watching these guys today, I was okay with the Morstead cut at first. I love Morstead. We've had Morstead on the show multiple times. Great guy. But like watching these guys today, it's like, did you really need the extra $2 million that you weren't going to allocate towards any other player to move on from Morstead? And now you're looking at two guys with no NFL experience battling it out who did not look great today during the first training camp practice. I don't understand it now, seeing what these guys ultimately looked like today. So those are my takeaways special teams wise. Obviously not too many positives from the special team standpoint. Most positives came on offense. And then, obviously we saw some defensive flashes as well. So those are my full takeaways of today's training camp practice. Appreciate you tuning in. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. It is Connor Long right here with you guys on a Wednesday edition of NY Flight Jet Talk. You got any questions? You got any comments? You got any thoughts? Throw those in the chat. We're going to get to those. Call into the show with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. We'll be back at training camp practice as well on Friday, so more kind of, in-depth, in-person recap. So certainly, stay tuned for all the training camp coverage, all the coverage we're having in general. We're going to have 2 shows tomorrow as well. Michael Nania gets us started at 8 a.m. EST, so very, very early show tomorrow. Stay tuned. 8 a.m. EST is going to be the start time of show number 1. Appreciate all of your support as always right here on this Wednesday evening. Eddie comes to the building. Shout out to you. Eddie says, "Hi, Connor. Okay, how did he look to you? You know the quarterback." You put this in. That's the part where I don't get to the chat right away. I know I see you commented further down too, Eddie. So you heard my analysis there. Yeah. For those who are just tuning in, though, I thought Fields overall was inconsistent from an accuracy standpoint and getting the ball downfield, hitting guys in stride. He was inconsistent. He had some flashes, but he also had some negatives today. So overall, an iffy performance for Fields. But again, getting back on the field, new offense, new system. It's going to take him a little. I don't think this is going to make or break the season overall. Jets Worldwide comes in and says, "Congratulations, kind of the grind is paying off. Hope you enjoyed attending training camp day 1. Jets Worldwide, Snowball, thank you for the kind words, my friend. Thank you for the support. It was great being out there. It was super, super, super fun. So appreciate the comment there, Jets Worldwide. John comes in with a bunch of GOAT emojis. John, shout out to you. You are the GOAT, my friend. Appreciate your support as always. Eddie, I agree with you on running backs. I really want our team to utilize our tight ends. We never used them over the years. I think this year, you really don't have many quality tight ends behind Mason Taylor. Obviously, you liked Mason Taylor enough. You trusted him enough to use a very, very, very high second-round draft pick on him. So I expect him to be, to take up most of the offensive targets. But behind that, Stone Smart, another unproven player at the NFL level. Zach Kuntz, the Ras King, he's unproven. I don't know if he'll make the team. You have some Jeremy Ruckert. Obviously, he's a lock at this point to make the roster, who has not established himself as much over 3 years in the NFL. This tight end room is very, very unproven. I don't expect a lot of these guys to have a huge impact on the team other than Mason Taylor. But like last year, for example, I was the biggest preacher of getting Tyler Conklin more targets, so when CJ Uzama was here, I wanted the ball in his hands more. So yeah, over the years, this team really hasn't utilized a tight end since the Dustin Keller days. And I think it starts with getting guys in the building who you trust. That's priority numero uno. Our guy Dylan Terraman, who's joining us Friday night here on the show, is in the building. Shout out to you, DT. Subscribe to Dylan's channel. He does such great work. Appreciate you tuning in right here on the show. DT says, "Was it hard suppressing your fandom while working at One Jets Drive today?" Very, very, very good media question here from DT. Shout out to you, by the way. Appreciate you tuning in as always right here on the show. Yes and no. Not even yes, really. It wasn't. It wasn't. Obviously it's super cool to be there, but the way I thought about it, like I didn't think about it as from like a fan's perspective. Even when the players were speaking to me, I was lucky enough to receive a credential for a practice last year too, but I kind of didn't know what it was going to be like. I kind of just was observing last time and, getting my feet set, kind of learning the ropes of 1JD and what it's like to be credentialed and, cover an event like that. So, like watching players speak at the podium was kind of like, oh my God, here's Robert Saleh, here's Javon Kinlaw spoke to us that day. So that I still remain obviously professional. I didn't show that, but that's kind of what I was thinking in my head. Today it was very, very different. Today I was very, very pleased with the way it went overall. I actually wrote a bunch of articles in the official press room, in the media room at One Jets Drive. So that was super, super cool. Hanging out with the other reporters in the press room, just, being able to be and work in that environment was super, super, super cool. So the way I thought of it today is, I'm not a fan. I'm covering this event from an analyst perspective. That's the way I thought of it. And obviously when I give my takes here, I give different takes, from a fan perspective, and then I give takes from an analyst perspective. Those who watch my post-game shows know those aren't, I give analysis on the game, obviously, but after a tough loss, the reaction isn't a reaction that a, ESPN analyst would give, for example, because that's still the fan of me. But, to, make a long answer short, it wasn't that difficult for me. I understood this was an event that I was covering. Don't show bias or anything like that. But so no, not. It wasn't really that much. That much for me. It wasn't like super difficult for me to not fanboy out and go crazy over Aaron Glenn standing 5-10 feet away from me. But appreciate the question, DT. Great question. Appreciate your kind words and support as always. Chris in the building. Shout out to you, my brother Chris. Appreciate your support as always here on the show. David D, backup wide receivers that don't offer much on special teams are in serious trouble to land a roster spot. That's the thing, and especially under a guy like Aaron Glenn as your head coach, where you need to optimize every single roster spot. Rostering a guy like Corley who has upside on offense but really hasn't showed you much on offense and gives you nothing on special teams is a tough decision in my opinion. So certainly odds are stacked against him. What is going on, Jack? Appreciate you tuning in. This is Connor. Did AZ or BS impress you more? I have to go Brandon Stevens because he had the tip of at the line that I spoke about today, and I really liked. I didn't see enough of AZ Thomas to truly make an assessment there, so I'd have to go Brandon Stevens today. Luppy in the building. Luppy says Connor, who ends up wide receiver too. Still sticking to Josh Reynolds. He had a nice catch today. Not a huge day, but Josh Reynolds has experience working in this offense as a veteran presence. My money is on Josh Reynolds to be the wide receiver too. But I think this could be, a position that fluctuates week to week. So not penciling anyone in there for good. So not writing someone in there for good. But if I had to make a prediction today, it's Josh Reynolds. Rep NY in the building. Appreciate you tuning in, Caden. Thank you for your support. Says Malachi Corley needs to go. Look, he certainly hasn't gotten off to a good start. I'm not signing off on him yet completely. I want to see how he looks throughout the rest of camp in the preseason, but he is certainly competing for a roster spot here throughout training camp in the preseason. Johnny Danks in the chat. Johnny, what's up? Appreciate you tuning in right here on the show, my friend. Let's see. Rep NY, yeah, Brandon C. He had great coverage, and he had that tip at the line as well. I was pleased with overall Stevens. Eddie says, great job on filling us in at training camp. Very informative. Thank you for the kind words, my friend. Appreciate it. Happy that you enjoyed the analysis here on the show today. Thank you for your support as always. I want to get into some of the quotes that obviously Aaron Glenn, Isaiah Oliver, Joe Tippmann, Justin Fields, and Jamie and Sherwood had to tell reporters today. That's our final segment here today on the show, and it'll be a nice segment to close us out. And again, keep throwing all the questions in the chat because I'm certainly going to get to all of those. Appreciate all of your support. As always, thank you so much for tuning in right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Of course, it is Connor along with you right here on the show. So today, 4 players spoke to us. Those 4 players, Isaiah Oliver, Jamie and Sherwood, QB1, that being Justin Fields, and Joe Tippmann alongside head coach Aaron Glenn. A lot of interesting takeaways from what all these what these guys had to say. Aaron Glenn started off his opening statement to us today, kind of speaking about what his message is to the players as training camp kicks off. And his message is, quote, the expectation in training camp is trying to create new things. The Super Bowl is down the road. His message to the players is take it day by day. We're trying to facilitate a new culture here, a new team, new schematics. We worry about the Super Bowl because that's the end goal, like he did ultimately say. It's the end goal, but you worry about that down the road. I think that's exactly what these players need to hear, especially given that a lot of these players are young. You need to take it day by day. You need to take it game by game, snap by snap, not worry about winning a Super Bowl. I think priority numero uno right now for AG is getting these players to buy in, which he's received a ton of buy-in, which is great, and now kind of change overall this culture and rehabilitate what it means to be a New York Jet. And I think that's what I really liked about AG's message today. It's not, oh, we need to go out and win a Super Bowl. That's a message. Go win a Super Bowl. Like we hear from so many coaches nowadays. It's let's relax. Let's start with the little things. Let's build our way up, and then we worry about a Super Bowl when we get there. That's what I liked most out of AG today. Then I want to get into also what he said about the Jets' commitment to Sauce and Garrett. He said, quote, the film doesn't lie, and just being around them, I am a pretty good judge of character, and those 2 guys are foundational players. And then I want to set the precedent that we want to sign our own players. So there's Aaron Glenn talking about why the Jets signed Sauce and Garrett. I don't want to get too deep into that because you guys know my stance on this. Love the fact that they sent the message of locking up young core foundational pieces, and I love that Aaron Glenn had a great answer there, being able to obviously back that up. Now, obviously Sauce and Garrett are, as lovey-dovey as it gets from the fan base. The whole fan base loves Garrett and Sauce. Someone you can't say the same about is Michael Clemens. And Aaron Glenn did address Michael Clemens at the podium today. This is what he had to say out of Clemens. He's, I actually just lost the quote from my tweet here. Sorry, let me get this up on the screen. I actually wrote an article about that, so I will pull the article up because the Twitter on my tab actually crashed. My apologies there. Here it is. This is what he had to say. He's big, strong, tough. He's built the way you want a football player to be built. There are things he knows he has to get better at. Some of the penalties that he had last year we've talked about. He has to improve on that, but he's big, strong DN that can set an edge, and he does have some rush abilities, power player, so I expect him to go out there and play with power. A very hated player by the Jets fan base, obviously, that being Michael Clemens. Glenn clearly likes him. Glenn clearly thinks he has the physical traits. He has the tools to be a successful player. I've said that for a long time. I think it's a coaching staff that's going to need to come in and straighten out who he is from a character standpoint and overall put him in the right system to thrive. AG's the guy to pretty much straighten out any player from a character standpoint. I think right now it's about getting Clemens in the right system because Clemens has the tools. He has the physical tools. He has a great build. He has great physique to be a very, very, very talented player off the edge. I think the biggest thing, though, for him is finding the right coach, finding the right scheme, and I think he might have that right now with Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes. So certainly going to be intriguing to see how, if Clemens has ultimately earned a spot on this roster, how that does play out. So, Michael Clemens' roster status certainly one of intrigue as training camp continues to progress. And then Aaron Glenn spoke about the center competition that a lot of people have been, and the team truly as well, has been provoking between Josh Myers and Joe Tippmann at the center position, those two battling now for the starting job. AG said there's an open competition everywhere. Our job is bringing in the best players that we can, and every player knows that there is competition everywhere. So Aaron Glenn has, stirred up this mantra, which I really, really like that, no one's spot on the depth chart is safe. I really like that. I think stirring up competition everywhere can never hurt, and I think it's always a great thing, but I think not starting Joe Tippmann would be a significant mistake. I don't think there's much of a competition. I think this is just being stirred up truly by the team. You saw the guy who was a top 10 center in football last year. He's the second-round draft pick on, not the guy who was a bottom 5 center in the league, and you just gave $2 million a year this offseason. I love Josh Myers. I think he's one of the 32 best centers. I view him as a higher-end backup. I'd rather have him as a higher-end backup compared to a low-end starter. I think you have a high-end starter in Joe Tippmann. To me, this is just Aaron Glenn again, stirring up the fact that no one's job is safe. Every snap has to be earned. I fully expect Joe Tippmann to be the starter, and I think it would be absolute blasphemy if he's ultimately not the starting center come week 1. But I truly, 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 in my heart of hearts, do not believe that we will have to get to that crossroad. I do think that he will earn the starting center job. I want to get into some of Justin Fields' comments. Obviously, last offseason with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he entered training camp having to battle it out for the starting job. Today, Jets have made it clear that he is the starter. He is the starting quarterback, and that's been made clear truly since they signed him. He told us today how much it means entering training camp, knowing he's the clear-cut starter. Quote, you don't have to worry as much. You know where you are, and you just have to focus on leading the team every single day. I don't think Justin Fields would have signed a contract with the Jets if it was not a guarantee that he would be the team's starting quarterback. Obviously, that job can go away if he, looks sluggish 4 or 5 weeks into the season. I think it's good for him mentally, though, to know that he has this job. He can sit back, he can relax, he can work on his technique as a passer. He can, work on, continuing to learn this offensive scheme under Tanner Engstrand, knowing that he's going to be the one commanding the offense every single snap. I think that takes a lot of pressure off a guy like Fields, especially who's younger, who's bounced around throughout his career, has had to earn a lot of starting jobs. I think that certainly is, a lot of weight off of his shoulders. So those are my thoughts on Justin Fields' comments there. I want to get into some things that Joe Tippmann said before we get into Isaiah Oliver, and then obviously Jamie and Sherwood right here on the show. Tippmann spoke about the Josh Myers signing today, say, quote, it took me by surprise a little bit, but Coach AG called me first and told me the situation, so I got excited. I mean, obviously, you're going to be a little discouraged if you find out your team signing another center who was also a starter in the NFL last year, but it's good to see that was ultimately ironed out with AG. What is Tippmann going to say? I hated the signing and, screw Coach AG. Tippmann was great at the podium, too, by the way, today. So overall, I do think Tittman earns this starting job, but I do think getting someone in the building with 4 years of starting experience, not only as a backup, but someone who can help mentor Tittman as well, that being Josh Myers, obviously super, super important. Also, when you can get him on a cheap deal. So I have no problem with the Jets signing Josh Myers. I just think the talks of him, being a starter and stirring this up, there's competition at the center position is insane. I completely disagree with that. And again, Joe Tittman will be the starting center on this team. End of conversation. Number 7 overall pick, Armand Membu. We haven't heard much out of him throughout training camp, but when asked about him today, Joe Tittman said, quote, "He's a quiet kid, but that is a great thing as a rookie. You can tell he's going to be a great player." Watching Armand Membu being able to fit in with this offensive line is going to be something that we see during the regular season. I don't expect to see much of Membu throughout training camp. I don't expect to see any Membu in the preseason. So we're going to have to wait till the regular season to really see the way that Armand Membu is able to fit in with this offensive line. And I think it's going to be really nice. He's playing along 4 other very, very high-end caliber players. So I expect Armand Membu to gel very, very nicely on and off the field. So that's what Joe Tittman had to say right there about Armand Membu. I want to get into some other comments made by Jamie Sherwood and Isaiah Oliver, two other players on this team, 2 defensive players on this team. I want to get into some of Sherwood's comments of his individual training camp goals. Obviously, he's inherited the role of being the leader, the captain of the defense since C.J. Mosley did ultimately retire. But this is what he had to say on his training camp goals. Quote, "I just want to be a better leader and help bring guys up through the totem pole." The Jets need a mentor on this defense, and I think Jamie Sherwood is more than ready to officially step into C.J. Mosley's former role. Obviously, C.J. Mosley did retire this offseason. Jamie Sherwood developed from once a rotational player throughout the first few years in the league to now a cornerstone truly of this defense, who is a leader on and off the field. I think every defense, especially when you're transitioning schemes, needs someone like that. And I think Jamie Sherwood is that guy for the Jets. So shout out to Sherwood, continuing to lead on and off the field. You absolutely love to see that from a guy who was just named your defensive captain. So great to hear Jamie Sherwood speak to reporters today. And then I want to get into a quote from Isaiah Oliver and his positional versatility. This is a guy who played 3 different positions for the Jets defensively last season. Speaking about his versatility today, he said, quote, "It's really more mental and during training camp because you only have so much time to play different positions. I am really focusing on safety right now." That is what Isaiah Oliver had to say. Obviously, he was so versatile this past season, played 3 different positions, took reps at nickel corner, took reps at safety, and took reps at boundary corner. That is super, super, super important. Versatile players mean a ton on defense, especially when you see, a ton of defensive injuries occur throughout the league, throughout the Jets, especially last season. This is a team that was riddled with injury in the secondary. Also, he's played under a defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks. He knows Wilks' scheme. He has experience as a veteran. He has versatility, and he's a guy who's played in this scheme before. You couldn't have asked, for a better 3-way combo there. So, really, really liked what all these guys had to say today. Thought there were some super, super, super positive takeaways from today's practice. There were a fair share of negatives as well, but I do think the positives outweighed the negatives, and I do think New York Jet fans have stuff to be excited for and look forward to this season, despite what some say. So really looking forward to the season. I think all fans truly should. So appreciate you all tuning in right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. It is Connor Long right here with you on the show. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. On the road to 2,000 subscribers, so please, please, please hit subscribe. It helps us grow. It means a lot right here on the show, and it is completely free, most importantly. Thank you so much for all your support, as always. We're going to wrap up here soon. Final questions, comments, thoughts, throw those in the chat. We are going to wrap up right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. 2 shows tomorrow, back 8 a.m. EST. You heard it there. 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Who will be joining us? That will be none other than Jets X Factor's very own Michael Nania. So stay tuned for that 8 a.m. EST. First show on tomorrow. Subscribe, like this video. Appreciate all your support as always. Comment your thoughts in the comment section down below if you're watching after the fact. Appreciate the hell out of you guys. Appreciate all of your support as always. Back at training camp on Friday. There's certainly going to be some more in-person key takeaways there as well. Super, super great being a credentialed member of the media for today's training camp practice. That couldn't happen, obviously, without all of you guys, without all of your support here on the show. So appreciate all of you guys, like I said, as always. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. It is Connor Long right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Signing off. Have a great night, like I said, everyone. And as always, JTS, Jets, 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 baby. Peace out.